Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Sound of Metal, starring Riz Ahmed and Olivia Cook, directed by Darius Marder. Now, I should just get straight into this movie. Before I do, I should warn you guys that it may get a little loud because of my voice, is why I put that at the beginning. So if you're hearing sensitive, please feel free to turn it down if you want, if you're hearing sensitive to the maximum that can help you. So let's get into the movie. Ruben, played by Riz Ahmed, is a drummer of a band led by his girlfriend Lou, who's the singer, and played by Olivia Cook, as she becomes deaf thanks to the endless drumming and broken eardrums. While he drums with the band, and I relate with Ruben because of his hearing problem, because admittedly, when I was young, I had an infected ear and learned to talk sign just like Ruben did in this movie. But I don't remember what I was taught since it was so long ago. And I like his girlfriend Lou, as I've seen Olivia Cook in quite a few movies, like I reviewed her before in Ready Player One, as she has scars on her arm. If you look closely now, I don't know if it's important to this movie, but I wondered if she was abused or did something to herself as a teenager. But the movie isn't about her going deaf. It's about Ruben going deaf. And Riz Ahmed gives one of his great performances since Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal. But both actors are tremendous in this movie. Ruben begins to hear silence from his ear while at a music store, or a record store, I'll say, for music. And that's when the deaf ear story begins. And we see him missing a few notes at a concert at night. The next day, Ruben wakes up and realizes he's getting deaf and tries to get some medicine for it and goes to the doctor's office and takes a hearing test. And that is what he personally finds out. That's when he personally finds out he's now deaf and wants to get his hearing back desperately. And the price of that surgery is $80,000, and performs with the band that very night and misses quite a few notes and tells Lou he can't hear anything. And this is working very well, and it's true for any drummer and any music maker or musician for that matter that they could go eventually deaf. And it feels true to anyone who might have heard at first but become deaf as a disability. And Lou is very sad about it as they go to the trailer, or RV, I'll say, because it's an RV, as they get a call from someone named Hector to advise Ruben to go to a place he can learn sign language. And I like the script as it's true to life. As they arrive, they meet Joe, who is the owner of the deaf community. And I like Joe in this movie as I care about these characters as the performances are very good. We learn Joe lost his hearing at the war with the bombs exploding near his ear, while Lou takes care of Joe's dog Louie as he chats with Ruben and eventually brings Lou inside to talk with Joe and brings Louie inside. And Ruben at first says no to staying at the deaf community and wants to go in on some tours with Lou. And the next morning, Ruben smashes things in the, or should I say, RV, as he's depressed about his hearing, and they have an argument, and he brings up putting a gun in his mouth as suicide. And Lou goes on a plane while Ruben has no choice but to go to the deaf community. And not only is this depressing, but it leads to a wonderful relationship between Ruben and the deaf people, as Ruben is introduced all around to everyone. And I like the relationship with these characters, as it works very well for this movie. And we learn more about the sign language, which is a brilliant way to show our main character is at the deaf community, as Joe asks Ruben to write something that comes to his mind, and eventually he'll write something, but for now he doesn't at the beginning of his sessions, as it's normal but powerful thing to write in the script. Ruben starts to barely hear things thanks to banging on the slider on the playground, and looks after a group of kids with Diane, who's one of the teachers, at a sign language school for deaf children, and the movie is very well shot as Ruben eats a donut, drinks coffee, and writes what's in his mind every morning, and relates with the kids and draws a picture of a nude woman and teaches them to drum. And all this is fantastic as the story works tremendously. Ruben, behind Joe's back, goes on the computer to see Lou wrote to him as she's a recording of her singing something on a microphone, and goes to the RV and takes some stuff and plays the drums on his own free time, and takes some kid to the RV, and he boxes some things up and thinks about selling the RV because he wants to get back to Lou as an arc. And as an arc, it makes perfect sense because Ruben wants to see Lou again as he goes back to the computer, as at first it's locked and calls an audiologist to schedule an appointment for the hearing surgery. That's a good message as Ruben finds a way to get his ears fixed. He sells his RV for $26,000, and the note to Joe's saying he's going to get some surgery for his ears, and he does come back as Joe talks with him, and as Ruben doesn't want to explain himself, as if he disappears, as Joe accepts it as it's a part of life. But at the same time, he's disappointed and thinks Ruben has an addiction of drugs, and asks Ruben to pack his bags and go somewhere else, which is a hurtful thing to say, but again, it's such a depressing scene, as the movie is pretty fucking depressing. So now Ruben stays at a hotel as he removes his bandages and shaves off his head, and it's a smart choice for Ruben to shave his head, but it feels not too safe, to be perfectly honest with you. Ruben gets his hearing aids on and can barely hear again thanks to a few tries by the audiologist, and flies to Lou's location in, I'm guessing, is somewhere in France? Excuse me. And goes to her father Richard's place. And the actor playing Richard, I've seen him in a couple of movies, like I reviewed him in the Grand Budapest Hotel in Munich, and I'll review him again when I get to Quantum of Solace, which is a James Bond movie with Daniel Craig. But he turns in good work here as well. He sees Lou, and they're both very happy to see each other, and Lou and Richard plan a party as Ruben is invited as well. And I like the shots in France, as it looks beautiful, as this movie has soul in its heart. After Richard and Lou sing a song that he sung when Lou was a kid for her father as it's his birthday, as she barely speaks French, as Ruben wants to go back into the music business, but Lou seems to be having mixed feelings about it based on how Olivia Cooke acted in that scene. And Ruben says to Lou she saved his life, which is a powerful way to say it to your lover, I must say. The next day, Ruben leaves and takes off his hearing aids and can't hear again. I'm so- Hang on, I'm sorry about that. I'm rudely interrupted by Siri and can't hear again. And the movie ends like that, which sounds absolutely fucking depressing, as the movie ends on such a sad note, and that is a complete downer. The ending of this makes the movie even more depressing as usual. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 8.1 out of 10. Both Riz Ahmed and Olivia Cooke, as well as the other actors, turned in some great work here at this movie, as this movie has soul and its heart. But be prepared to be depressed, as this movie is really depressing. There were times I felt sad with it, but I didn't cry that much. And I don't usually cry at the movies, but it's a powerful, true message that could happen to anyone in the music business, to hear things completely loudly in general, as it is well made, but prepared to come into this movie knowing it's depressing. But it's still a really good film, but the ending felt like a downer. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and I'll see you guys next year. Until then, and the Oscar goes to